How are you? You started here?
The other camera's getting set up in the other place.
No camp chair today?
I was thinking about hauling it in. Sometimes I'm not in the office. I wish we just replaced the one there. Yeah. Just leave it. And then grab
Thank you for coming this evening. Call the meeting to order. We have all council members present. Our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Council Member Eric Jensen and opening remarks by Council Member Diana Anderson.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Father in heaven, we are very grateful for the opportunity that we have to gather together as citizens. We ask that Thy Spirit be here, that we will be able to listen and hear and understand those items on the agenda. We pray that we will, that our loved ones will be safe while we are away. We also ask a blessing on those who are on call right now, public safety and public works, who are keeping our town and citizens safe. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Okay. Council, any changes? All right, we'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
A motion by Sid, second by Diana, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, it's now open session. I've been asked to make you aware that items about protocol for city council meeting have not been voted on, and so they are not going to be addressed and implemented until the first or second meeting in January.
It's on the agenda for January 5th.
First meeting in January for the council to consider the changes that were discussed last week. So we don't have those to implement this evening. So we would ask you to just be considerate of one another as far as your time goes on comments, and yeah, I think we've covered it. So it's an open session now, and if anyone would like to speak to the council on an item that's not on the agenda for an open discussion or a public hearing, you're welcome to do so now. And there are some items on here that people probably want to express some thoughts on, and we don't have those listed as public hearing or open agenda items, so please go ahead and feel free to address the council at this time. Just state your name and address, and Kathy will report that.
Jennifer Baptista, 32 North, 1300 East. I just had a couple of clarification questions. So on the item 10B through E, It's not listed as public hearings. Are you taking public comment in that section?
So on the public hearing part, I did address this with staff a couple days ago, and
If we're talking about, are you talking about the trails?
Yeah, all the trail stuff.
Yeah, so, items 10B, C, D, and E, where all the public hearing was held on the planning commission level.
Okay.
For the purposes of tonight, there's not. So if people want to address that during the open session, would be the appropriate time.
Okay, so they won't be able to speak during that item at that time.
As currently constituted.
Okay, that's what
anything else? Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Christopher Williams. My address is 845 North, 100 East. And I wanted to talk about the rules, or the rules of order and procedures of an open meeting. You know, that was discussed last council meeting. It wasn't open to the public last week, so I just wanted to express some things that I feel. I'd like to thank Diane and Ben for voting for the citizens. I really appreciate that. I'm an advocate for citizens' rights, and therefore, because I'm a citizen, I appreciate that. I wanted to say a few things about respect and disrespect to those regards. You know, I guess everybody has a different tolerance of how they feel disrespected. Maybe someone feels disrespected for something rather than other. I do admit that there's been some disrespect during these meetings. Maybe from the citizens, maybe from the council. I think the disrespect was mutual, I could say. Another thing I'd like to say is one thing I feel about respect, how I've always been taught, is respect is something that is always earned. Okay, it's just not something freely given. I do want to say something in regards to something that happened in a meeting about a month and a half ago with an applicant that was saying right here at this very podium. And I felt, how should I say this? I felt there was some support for him. I felt that there was some persuasion, which is okay, but I also felt that there was a little disrespect. And I also feel that the applicant felt that way too. And I think we got to be very mindful of that in those regards. And I feel like I'm trying to say this respectfully, but as a citizen, I would like to make the council feel accountable for those actions. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Michael Butt, 936 North, 1420 West. I want to address this issue in what may appear to be somewhat an unorthodox manner, but I promise to be brief. In the year 1913, this nation, in a moment of purported crisis, decided that our founding fathers were flawed and misguided about what is known as the Great Compromise of the Constitutional Convention of 1787, wherein the true character of a republic was manifest by designing a Congress divided by those directly elected by the people and those appointed by the states, thus creating a barrier between the passions of smaller groups and solid laws that protect the whole, in the hopes of avoiding critical decision-making during the tempest of the moment and seeking patiently for the perspective that comes when calmer waters prevail. So clear was their intent, they devised to have members of the House of Representatives serving only 2 years, while senators would surpass even the president, serving for 6. In 1913, the passage of the 17th Amendment trampled the embedded genius of our founders, forever entombing a critical check and balance, and has left us swirling in the 100-year wake of the whims of both sides of Congress, with its shorter and longer terms, being carried out by those who fashionably willed the term career politician. We have since experienced the passing of laws that would take away property and wealth of the industrious and distribute it to any special interest group that will commit their votes. Conflicts are promoted to such groups through the idea they're being abused on the basis of race, religion, wealth, political affiliation, location, and sexual orientation, appealing to the emotions that will advance preconceived outcomes, such as jealousy, greed, and entitlement. Most distressing of all is to see the attempts to curtail the liberties and mute the voices of the people who oppose the subversion of constitutional law and the wholesale plunder of public monies by government officials. Father Washington warned, however combinations or associations may now and then answer popular ends, they are likely in the course of time and things to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men, and I will add women, will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and to usurp for themselves the reins of government, destroying afterwards the very engines which have lifted them to unjust dominion. Toward the preservation of your government and the permanency of your present happy state, it is requisite not only that you steadily discountenance irregular oppositions to its acknowledged authority, but also that you resist with care the spirit of innovation upon its principles, however specious the pretext. With this national backdrop in mind, I want to localize my thoughts now to the recent actions considered by this council to alter the manner in which the people are allowed to express our voice in local government matters. At a city level, the critical check and balance involves the voice of the people. I strongly urge this city council to deeply consider that all of its actions fall under the scope of liberty and constitutional law, and to seriously consider these actions seeking to limit, diminish, and restrain our voice. At the same time, I encourage my fellow citizens to use this podium in a consistently relevant manner while tending to the business at hand, and to do so as prepared, clear, and concise as possible. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to?
Dale Road, 769 East, 1300 North. I was here at the planning meeting last week, and given that these will be closed items and just voting on, just to kind of address 10B through 10E regarding the trails. Last week, in my first question, I asked to view appendices G and H for the changes to the town plan, which were not presented. I don't know if it's possible to see a copy of those today or for the public to view those, but they were not made available last week and they were not in the public packet. I looked them online, and there's not much from the Planning Commission in the past few months online that I could find. We have concerns, and I speak for Ray Lyons and Scott Van Eyde, who are unable to attend tonight. Ray Lyons is at his daughter's mission calling tonight. She's being set apart to leave tomorrow. And Scott Van Eyde has been in DC for the past week and will be until the end of the month or just before Christmas. With regards to the runoff, which I feel still have not been addressed, we've been assured, and I really appreciate Leon Giles' efforts to kind of explain how that will be looked into, but I really feel that should be in the plans and in writing before we vote to accept the plans, given the risk to the homes. There are questions regarding ongoing maintenance, and we've been told several times that the police will be able to kind of enforce the curfews. They'll be able to make sure that people aren't illegally using the trails or they're kind of engaging in things they shouldn't be. We've also been told that the scout troops will do the cleaning up. However, I'm concerned that in the minutes of the meeting in May this year, the Chief of Police made a statement that they do not have the manpower to police the Murdoch Canal Trail. So I struggle to see how, without additional funds, they'll be able to police the mountain bike trails. Concerns as to why they're so close to property lines, and this has been ongoing, and this is really the crux of the whole matter, is why these trails need to be so close, at times within 15, 20 feet of property lines. Some of the residents, my neighbour Ray Lyons included, does not fence his backyard. It's already used as a thoroughfare by several individuals and groups that go through there, and he has concerns about that, and I share those concerns. We have a gate to the rear of our property that is potentially at risk of that, and it's just there's been no solid justification that I've heard that's explained why they need to be that close, given all the land that's further available to the north. There are ongoing concerns with the parking. Applying parking zones and putting up signs saying that parking is restricted is good in principle, but it's not legally enforceable. And given from last Thursday's discussions towards the end of the meeting, as the meeting closed out, it became very apparent that there are plans to use this for events and for competitions, even though we've declined the money from the group that was going to require that every year, that there are definitely plans in place to have those events. Process on those needs to really kind of give some assurances that there will be parking enforcement, and that will be the police or whoever will be able to legally enforce those parking restrictions to prevent the whole area being used, the whole block region around that being used as a parking space. And on a technicality, the minutes for that meeting were not made available prior to the meeting, as the city code says they should be. They should have been posted 48 hours before the meeting. There was nothing online for last week's planning meeting.
The agenda?
The agenda, yeah. Which the result of that was I went after the meeting and spoke to a couple of my neighbours because I was expecting them to be here, and they hadn't heard of it. They knew nothing about the meeting. They'd been watching the town site, and they'd seen that there was a planning meeting happening, but there was no agenda associated with that was published, which kind of denied some people the opportunity to have their voice heard.
Are you saying no notice at all, or just no agenda?
There was no agenda.
Okay.
Kathy, you know if that's correct?
I don't do planning commission,
We can check with,
Thank you for giving me the time to.
thank you. I did have a question for you, I'm sorry. I just wanted to, you wanted to see appendixes G and H.
Appendices G and H.
And the three concerns listed were too close to properties, not enough policing, and not enough parking. Is that
And no engineering survey for the water runoff.
water runoff?
Nothing that we've kind of seen in print. We've been told there have been some preliminary ones, but that was prior to the open house in November. And that was where I pointed out on the map where our properties were. And Dion and Dagan both said there had been nothing currently in plans for those, but they needed to be. So we just kind of want to see that in the plans.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, would anyone else like to speak?
Blaine Thatcher, 120 North, 1400 East. I would like to address this body regarding the decisions that were made at last week's council meeting to restrict citizens' ability to give input to this body. Council meetings over the last year or so, while they have sometimes gone very long, have, except in a small number of instances, been civil, in order, and have allowed this body to accomplish their work. The action taken last week was justified by statements that council meetings are too long, have gotten out of order, become uncivil, and are not allowing this body to accomplish their work. The action taken, rather than looking at the reality of those claims made or other factors that affect the length of meetings, etc., singled out the citizens as the cause of unsubstantiated claims and voted to restrict the ability of citizens to speak. If restricting the citizens' input was an inconsequential matter, a hasty decision perhaps would be tolerable. And I think it's of note that this decision was made without citizen input. However, this decision is curtailing a fundamental element of our governmental system. There are specific reasons that this body is required to deliberate and vote in a public forum. There are specific reasons that the governed should have ample opportunity to not only hear their representatives deliberate and vote, but to voice their input in those deliberations prior to a vote. This deliberation should not only be in public, but should be on public record available for all citizens to see and hear. Therefore, I call upon this body to reconsider their actions and not restrict the citizens' ability to give input in the process of council meetings. You are our representatives, and I believe it is incumbent upon you to listen to input from your constituents on public record, whether you like it or not. I recommend the following simple suggestions. Only implement a time limit on citizens' comment when large controversial issues require the limit to allow many citizens to have input. Only restrict the number of times a citizen can comment on an issue when the number of citizens desiring to speak requires the limitation. And finally, allow public comment associated with each agenda item that requires a council vote. This will reserve open session for comments unrelated to agenda items and not force citizens to comment citizen comment related to an agenda item to be separated from the discussion of that item. So again, I call on this body to reconsider the decisions made to restrict citizen input. These simple suggestions and the rules of order previously in our city policies completely allow the city to accomplish its work in an orderly fashion and allow citizens to voice their opinion. Please do not single out the citizens that you represent and restrict their input. Apply any rules of order upon yourselves and the citizens equally. Thank you.
Point of clarification for your information. The decision made last week was to bring the subject to an actual action because it does need to be adopted by resolution. And that's what we saw last week, where 3 who wanted it brought forward and 2 felt like they liked it the way it was. So the actual, while it seems like the actual decision has been made, it really hasn't.
Seemed a pretty solid vote,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Melvin Renslow, 871 East, 1250 North. Get my numbers all messed up. I'm concerned about the foothills as well. Being a homeowner that backs up to it as well as Brother Rowe, my main concern is the runoff. Is I have one of the steeper hills where the water will be coming down and a few of the trails will be going through. My concern is that water coming down. When I first built my house, before I had yard and everything in, my basement flooded, and luckily we were only in there a month and there was no grass and everything, and so all the water just came down the hill. Now that we got yard in and stuff, and our basement finished, that is a big concern because it was a big undertaking of cleaning all that mess up and getting it all taken care of, and that was a mess that I don't want to go through again. Another concern that I have is the trash and debris of the races that are supposedly going to be happening there, and we already have a small area up there in the foothills, and with more people getting up there, I'm not trying to oppose it because the foothills are for the people to go up and exercise, and I go up there myself. But I think we're going to have more concern there of trash and debris being left behind and needing to be cleaned up, and the homeowners will be the ones in that area that will want to make sure that we preserve that because that's what we look out of our back windows. One other concern that I have is being a high school lacrosse coach, we don't have fields here in Pleasant Grove to play on. We go to Linden to play and practice and do everything that we do. We've got 120 some kids in our program, and I would love to have a lacrosse field right here in my backyard, but I don't have that. I have to go to Linden to do that. I choose to do that because the school that provides us or allows us to go there and practice and everything, we just, whoever's gonna accommodate or help us, that's what we're doing. And so I think if we're gonna allocate funds for things, for the foothills for one club, we need to consider other clubs, not high school programs, but clubs that need places to play and to exercise and stuff here in our own city. The other one was addressed by Brother Rowe too as well. I have one more concern. My wife just texted me and I want to make sure I state that.
Sitting in the room.
So, she chose not to come, but we have, it's winter, the ground's starting to freeze. I would like you to really consider of thinking about your choices and stuff and maybe waiting a month or two before we make a decision that will impact us, that's not gonna change until February, March timeframe when we can actually, get the studies back about the runoff or, some of these other concerns that are raised about it and make sure they're taken. My main concern is in our area, there's only 2 access roads that go into our subdivision. And then if we're gonna start having bike meets there, we can't take a lot of cars on our roads because we already have issues with, our, roads needing to be repaired as well. So that's all I'd like to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Jason Cowley, 583 780 North. Most of you know why I'm here. I just want to address a few things and make a couple of comments about the trail system. First off, I want to say that the majority of the objections that we've heard and that we're going to hear are mostly a not in my backyard kind of objection. And while I empathize with that, I feel strongly that there is a greater citizen body that stands to benefit from these trails. I feel that we have gone to extraordinary efforts to accommodate, to study, and to really do the due diligence that are needed for what we're talking about here, which are 3-foot wide dirt trails that don't bring in any additional elements. We've done a complete engineering site plan, which goes way above and beyond what any other trail system would require, as stated by our professional trail builder who came in and said he'd never seen that anywhere in the country. In terms of the events, we have made the compromise to step away from and deny monies from the Utah High School Cycling League, and so that we would not be tied to any events. Should any events want to come and races be held at these facilities, those are things that would have to go through the normal event process as per any other event, whether it be Little League games or anything else. And those would be open and to the subject of the council as to what the requirements when it came to trash cleanup or police enforcement or parking for those events would all be requirements that would need to be enforced as a separate issue for the event. I personally represent what will be next year a team of over 150 riders that are all citizens of our city. Furthermore, I represent thousands of mountain bikers, not to mention that these trails will be open to hundreds of equestrians and hundreds, if not thousands, of trail runners, hikers, Cub Scout groups. The property that it's being built on is vastly privately owned, which means that once you cross off the line from the personal property, and we are 10 to 15 feet in or more in most cases into that other privately owned land, it meets all of the easement and other requirements by city code to stay away from other personal private property. As many of you know, we've been at this for quite some time, and to build a trail system through that area actually is going to be improving that property quite a bit. The way the trails are designed, they're designed with a principle called reverse grading, which disperses water and keeps it from channeling down paths where it should not be located. We're going to be revegetating, which will be further dispersing water runoff. And when it comes to the particular elements in terms of the area that has been of some concern for runoff, the engineering firm has studied and looked at that area where the trails are concerned. And where the runoff issues have existed in the past is a known issue that would exist and will still exist regardless of whether the trails go in or not. Again, a separate issue that shouldn't be tied to this. I believe that many of the opponents to this park system will be trying to run an idea of delay and death by attrition. As far as I'm concerned, for the group that I represent, we are urgently in need of these trails. We don't have to travel to Linden, we have to travel to Eagle Mountain or farther in many cases to get to where we need to be. I don't think it's showing favoritism to any particular club. If a club coach wants to come and put in the 700 to 800 hours of time that I've put in to try and get this done, I think that they should definitely step up and do that and get a park built for lacrosse or for whatever other sport is good for our youth. I think supporting our youth programs has a long track history of being of great benefit to our city. Lastly, I want to just point out that as far as my club goes, as far as the 100+ kids that will be a part of my team next year and the 50 or so coaches that will be a part of my team next year, not only do we run a youth program, but we also run scholarships and sponsorships for at-risk kids, for kids who are in desperate circumstances. And those are all youth that we are taking and giving a program that would otherwise be challenged in our community.
My name's Danny Rowan. I live at 462 East 420 South, and I also wanted to address the trail system, but I wanted to offer support for it. Jason talked about it being a not in my backyard issue, which I think is just funny because normally when you talk about not in my backyard, you're talking about prisons and nuclear power plants and trash dumps. And here we have something that's going to be beautiful and quiet. And if it were in my backyard, I would love it. So please, in my backyard, if you could build it in my backyard, that'd be great. This proposal has gotten a lot of flack from people whose property is nearby, and you know, I respect that because, you know, anytime our property is affected, we want to make sure that we're going to be happy with that. But like Jason said, all indications are that this is a net positive even for them. It'll beautify the hills and also increase property values. I think the real issue here is a fear of change. Change can be scary, and we often try to resist it. But change is happening in Utah County, and here in Pleasant Grove, whether we like it or not. We don't get to choose whether change happens, we only get to direct how change happens. And this is an overwhelmingly positive change for our city. We look at neighboring cities like Orem and American Fork and Lehigh and even Linden, and we wonder why they have all this development and consequently the funds to do things like repair their roads. And it's because those cities decided to embrace change in a positive way. We have that opportunity tonight as we consider this trail system. We have the opportunity to put Pleasant Grove on the map, to build something that will attract people and businesses to our city. People will want to live here and work here because of these trails. We have the opportunity to show that Pleasant Grove is serious about creating positive growth and attracting the kind of people who are frankly looking for jobs at places like Adobe and Domo, because those are the people that are out biking. The concerns from all my observations have been extensively addressed. It is a very small minority of people, and I would say that the overwhelming majority of the citizens of Pleasant Grove support this trail system. And trails are what people want today, especially here in Utah. And I hope the council will unanimously approve this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sasha Welker, 556 East, 1300 North. I just wanted a little bit of clarification and maybe to step back a little bit. It's my understanding that this trail or bike park has been in the city master plan for many years, even before Pleasant Grove High School had a biking team. And so it seems now that the city is finally getting what they're wanting and what they've wanted for so long. You have private citizens that have been actively involved in helping this process. And so to me, it doesn't seem that this needs to be a vote for people to decide whether it is going to happen or not, because the city has wanted this to happen for a long time. And there's been studies done and support in favor and against, but this is something that the city has wanted in their master plan for many years. Am I wrong? Is that correct?
That's correct.
I don't know what it is.
Well, concepts for this type of, shall we say, park or trail system have been discussed and have been identified in a general sense in the master plans. However, the more specific detail and exact locations of it have not been identified, and that's one thing that we're doing tonight, to amend our plans so that type of detail is there.
So for many years, Pleasant Grove has wanted a bike park, and now's the opportunity that we get to finally have one. And this isn't just for this team or this club or this group of people, it's for the whole city. And I just hope that everyone keeps that vision and that perspective in mind. Thank you.
My name is Mindy French. I live at 406 South 375 East in Pleasant Grove. And so I am also in support of any development that we can have in our community to be able to have an active community for our children. I mountain bike quite often, looking at my notes here, quite often going to Corner Canyon, Lambert Park, and those homes that are around there, I think they highly benefit from having those improvements in their area. You look at the vegetation that they have there, and the trails aren't going to be right next to people's houses. There's going to be trees there, and I think it's going to be lovely. And so I would encourage those, if it is going to be in your backyard, I would also, like Danny, love to have this in my backyard. But if it's something that's close to your home, I encourage you, go and look at Lambert Park, go and look at Corner Canyon, and you'll see these big, beautiful homes that benefit greatly from having such a wonderful park in their area.
Louis Cowley, 1066 North, 400 East. I've been to several planning commissions, several city councils, and emotions are definitely running high. And I've kind of tried to step back and say, hey, I'm related to Jason, I really shouldn't be up here, but we're almost missing the whole point, I think, here at City Council. I feel very strongly what these people are feeling up there. I remember attending city councils and planning commissions 25, 30 years ago as they started to build up that hill. And I didn't want that. I didn't want that beauty taken away so I couldn't see it. I was concerned about runoff. I was concerned about traffic. I was concerned about everything that they're concerned about now. And I'm not saying this to be facetious. I really understand where they're coming from. Just to make it very short, the same issues were there then as they are now. And what we need to remember as a city is we want to do what's right for the majority of the city. All of us, at times, have to step back and make concessions. I put up a fence in my backyard so I didn't have to see that hillside with all those homes up there. But was made a comment that they didn't put up a fence so they could see it. They trampled on my rights. Now, I'm sure you're looking at it as we're trampling on their rights. But City Council, I urge you to do what is best for the majority of the city. And I hope that all of us can, as citizens of Pleasant Grove, and we all seem to say we love it, be able to accept whatever the outcome is. Thank you, City Council.
Nathan Harmon, 1206 North, 730 East. I live in that neighborhood that's by the foothills and feel myself blessed to be able to be there. Use it all the time, bike, ride, take scouts, look for crystal pits. It's awesome to have. Now someone wants to come in and make it even better. I'm definitely all for it. I learned something this last year that's even more is my son decided to join the biking team. I didn't really bike. I said, hey, I'll do it with you. If there's any leaders, great, let's do that. I learned two things. I'm not a very good biker and I was sort of out of shape. But the other thing I learned was the biking community people and how good of people they are. And what it really did for the youth and kids who got out there who didn't think they could do something, and within a few months, they conquered a lot of things. And so I will definitely invite my neighbors to come to my neighborhood and say, come to our park, come to my friends, come to my park. Because I want the good people coming to my neighborhood. I want good people coming to my neighborhood, and I'm gonna invite them to come and join it. If the good people are in my neighborhood, the bad people stay out. And so, a lot of the times, there's stuff in the foothills that, aren't as good. If there's bikers and people's up there, they're policing it themselves. There's no really reason for the police department to worry about it. You're gonna have bikers and people up there that are gonna do it for you. And so, I hope that the council would look at it, and it's a benefit for the community, it's a benefit for our kids, and whoever wants to come in. People are gonna stop in Pleasant Grove. It's gonna be a destination spot to come and bike. And for those of my neighbors, it doesn't matter. Hopefully, we're still neighbors. If I get a different of opinion, and I hope that's the great thing about this country, that we can differ and still be all right and be friends. But I want people to come and enjoy what we have. The foothills are fantastic. What a great place to gather, share with people, and have them come to our community. And like I say, you're going to bring the right type of people into our community when it comes to the biking community. So thank you.
I'm Brian Fruit, commercial property owner here in the city at 661, 663, and 665 West State Street. I was able to be part of the steering committee to put together the original pedestrian and cycling master plan, and then connected with Linden and Orem and American Fork and High Penn, Cedar Hills, and I was able to actually sit on the committee with Linden as well. It was awesome to see the foresight in trying to connect these trails, so this road would have a cycling path on it that would not dead end, but it would then go to a cycling path in Linden, and then somebody could actually commute and get to work and get their exercise that way. So it's cool to see that this was part of that conversation, and we thought, hey, maybe we could do a little trails park up in the foothills, and to see that that's now progressing and that we're close. So very cool. That trip actually, that committee, we went on a trip to Colorado, and I do believe it was cold for those that went. But it was neat to see what they had done and how they had embraced cycling and pedestrian paths, and how people were outside and exercising. So I'm all for that. I'm a ride leader under Jason on the Pleasant Grove NICA team, and to be a ride leader, I actually had to get a background check, which I passed. I had to do an online course for concussion training, so in case one of the kids crashed, I could recognize that they had a concussion. Then we had to do a first aid certification, which took the better part of a night to get through. There's a rule to be a NICA leader through the organization. You have to have one adult certified rider or certified ride leader for every 6 kids. And then Jason would prefer to go 1 to 4, so he wants to have a few more adults there. So it's awesome from that standpoint. I developed a few properties in some of the here in Pleasant Grove and in some of the other cities, and people and businesses look for a community that has amenities. This would be an amenity that would draw people that they would love, and this would be a great amenity to have in this area. My understanding is that there's been private funds committed to build this trail if there's no city funds for it. So from a funding standpoint, to get them built, I don't think that's really much of a concern. The Murdoch Canal Trail, if I remember correctly, took 25 years to get approved. Jason, we got a few more years. 25 years. But they put counters on that, and they're finding that there's just thousands and thousands of people that use that every day. So it's been a great addition. I am definitely for having the trails and paths up there for people to jog, ride a bike, to enjoy, and to use that nature.
Judd Zimmerman, I live at 693 East 100 North, right right next to Lynn Walker there. I kind of come in support of many groups. I am an avid mountain biker, have been for the large majority of my life, as long as I can remember. I started the team 4 years ago, so I can speak with them. For having ridden for so long, I can speak for thousands of cyclists, and I can also speak for the Utah High School Cycling League as operations manager. I know one fear, one concern that's been expressed tonight is trash from events. And first off, if there were events, there wouldn't be trash issues. I've been doing this for 4 years, and trash is not an issue. And if it is quickly brought up to every single coach. Number two is the likelihood of having a race here is pretty slim. We run races in a few cities, and cities don't really work for us. The areas are really small. We require, just for the team area, what we call the pit zone, we require 2 acres of land. That's just for teams to park their bikes, tents, that's that only. So we really don't have that kind of space here. So you can ease your minds on events. That would be the largest event you would ever possibly see at there, and it's not going to be happening anytime soon. Even with splitting, we continue to grow, and we'll get back up to 2 acres in 2 different regions. The last thing I was thinking about, as Brian mentioned, you look at the Murdoch Canal, we have thousands of visitors. And I know parking is a huge concern for a lot of people. If you look at how much use the Murdoch Canal gets, and how much parking you see used at those different access points. Parking could be an issue, but I can guarantee you, from my experience, from my years of cycling, from my years of going to bike parks, resorts, everything, parking, you won't have parking issues. And even if you do have some small ones, mountain bikers are their own policemen. We don't like our trails ruined. We don't like our trails taken away. And if there's a possibility of a trail being taken away because people are parking, we'll police it. We are very good at that. So obviously, I am in huge support of it. I wouldn't even park. I would just ride my bike to that trail. I think most people in Linden, Cedar Hills, Pleasant Grove, they won't even be parking there. We have the Murdoch Canal to go straight to it. It's a great warm-up for us. So I'm in huge support of this. I think it's the best thing we could have, one of the best things we could have for our city, for our youth, and for Congress, for bringing people in.
Thank you.
Good to see you again. Dale Rose, 769 East, 1300 North. I just want to kind of clarify here that this is not a fear of change. This is not in my backyard. I like the idea of having bike trails. I enjoy biking myself. I commute to work in the summer in Provo. I'm an IT professor. My job, my existence revolves around change and adopting to change and harnessing change for the better. And I do believe that done properly, this could be a fantastic opportunity. My concern isn't what's being done, it's how it's being done. The fact that some appendices were not shown, and I don't know why. There may not be a reason, it may have been an omission, but they haven't been shown. There's talk of the grading and the studies that have been done, but I haven't seen a study. And I went to the open house, which was the first I heard of the trail proposal. I've been here for 5 years, it didn't show up in any of the property searches when we moved in. That may not have stopped me if it was there and it had the proper studies in there at that point, and we could have looked at that. We may still well have bought the property and be here standing up and saying how great an idea this is, and we're for it. And that can still happen. It's just, we want assurances that this is being done right, given the risk that's potentially there of having to go and clean up after things. And I appreciate the words that have been said and how that's been explained, but it's some things such as the runoff studies, the maintenance plan that's funded for keeping it maintained and making sure it stays as good as it starts, and being able to kind of have complete visibility into the plans and development and those studies. That's what the concern really is right now. It's not what's being done, it's how, and it's assurances. And if we have the time to see those and have a look at those and make sure that everything's being done properly, potentially we could still ground break by the time the ground thaws. This is really not a position to change, and I'm not trying to come here and be a stickler in the mud. It could be great in my backyard. I'm just very nervous at the moment that it's a lot of risks attached to it. Thanks.
Williams, 175 South, 1300 East. I am also a mountain biker, and my husband is for this, and I am not yet. And it's not because of not in the backyard. I don't think all the questions have been addressed sufficiently. And I wrote a couple of notes down, just even from things I've heard tonight. One was when he was talking about the horses on the trail. When I'm on the trail in the spring and there's been horses, they beat up the trail. They beat it up bad where it's hard to ride. Who takes care of that? Who pays for that? Who pays for the spring runoff in some of those areas? You talked about an engineering firm. Who paid for that? I'd like to know those kind of things. And I'm also wondering, where are these studies at? I'd like to see them. And they could be very easily answered. These are questions that I have. At one point, Mr. Cowley indicated that there would be a lot of revenue from having events here. But then he just indicated that there wouldn't be because it's too small and that. And so one of the things that he talked about was the revenue of having these meets. So there won't be, that's another question I have. Also the bathrooms. If there was an event there, those bathrooms, that's not sufficient. So I imagine you'd have to bring in portable bathrooms. Who pays for that? Who pays for the stocking? Who pays for the upkeep? Those are just a lot of questions that I feel like have not been addressed. And so, anyways, those are questions that I would like to have answered. Thanks.
Evening, Council. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to address you. My name is Rod Ryrie. I don't live there yet, but I purchased a lot at 1238 North on 1000 East. My wife and I just purchased the property kind of in an effort to move out of the metropolis that Orem became last week. And we love the lot. We have fallen in love with Pleasant Grove. A few days after we purchased our lot, we went up and were taking in our view, we're taking in the site and kind of getting the way home. And a few neighbors approached us. One neighbor asked us if we had heard of any trail park. And no, what's that about? Well, actually, it's going to be so far south of you, it's just not going to matter. So probably won't affect you. Another neighbor later approached us a few minutes later and said, oh, this is great that you're going to build here. Have you heard about the trail park? Well, don't worry, it's going to be so far south of you, it's just not going to matter to you. So we weren't really sure what the park was all about until we went to the first planning commission meeting. And I was shocked when the map came up on the screen and I saw a trail literally on our property. My understanding is that has been rectified. Is that right, Dan? So that trail is no longer on our property, but I want to assure the council, as well as all the other citizens here, that I do support the park. I think it's a fantastic idea. I support it in principle, but I do have concerns. I have a friend, a very good friend, who has a son who's a member of NICA. And when I was visiting with him, he said, how are things going with your lot in Pleasant Grove? And I told him about kind of our concerns about the bike trail. And he said, Rod, I've got to tell you, and I'm going to be honest with you, he said, I love NICA, it's fantastic, he said, but after events, there's two things you need to be really aware of, especially if these trails are as close as they are to your home. He said you need to be aware, number one, of trash, and you need to be aware of parking. He said trash is, after an event, is pretty substantial, and then parking, of course, being another issue as well. My understanding is, and I've heard from Jason, I've heard from other members of the bike community, they indicate that trash is not going to be an issue because everybody self-polices. And I suppose that's admirable, and I'll certainly take that into consideration. My primary concern is the proximity, again, to property lines. As I mentioned, when I first saw the map, a trail was quite literally on our property. that has been moved, but it's been moved just 10 feet away. On the southeast corner of the park, there's kind of a trail that comes out of the bulk of the park and goes to the southeast corner, almost to the Grove Creek trailhead. I'm sorry, I'm not super familiar, but almost to there. It does a U-turn and then goes up the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. That trail kind of comes out of nowhere and it passes directly by 2 homes and then turns and then goes back to the bulk of the trail, and you'll see that when you look at your maps. So my question was, why is that there in the first place? And so I asked Jason about that, and Jason said it was the only flat part in the whole 108 acres, 100 plus acres, where they could have a staging area for an event where thousands of people would congregate just prior to an event. Yes, quite literally in our backyard. And so of course we're very concerned about that. I've spoken with Dion extensively about it and voiced our concerns about, there's about a 400-foot span of trail that just comes so close to homes, and that's our primary concern. There's also a spot of land that is directly north of our land that was owned by Metro at one point, but was later abandoned and is now owned by the bank. The trails do go up to that parcel of land as well. My understanding is the city does not have any kind of approvals from the bank to use that parcel of land yet. I would ask the council to just, again, I am for the park, I am. I would just ask that we reconsider that one portion of the trail that goes past so close, literally within 10 feet, which I think is too close for comfort to a number of homes that are along that 400-foot stretch. The parcel of land that is owned by the bank, I'm in negotiations with the bank to purchase that. And the whole purpose of doing so would be to extend our backyard slightly, but also it would be to create a larger barrier between us and the trail. And by purchasing that, it would cut off all access to that 400 feet. I just asked the council to save me trouble so that I don't have to buy that from the bank. And just reconsider that 400-foot stretch. And I appreciate again your time very, very much. Thank you.
I'm Christian Burrell. I live at 797 South, 1100 East. I am not affiliated with NICA any longer. I was a head coach for 2 years. I haven't been for the last couple. I am very close friends with Jason Cowley, and I've been with him this whole process, both the good and the bad. And I still got your back, Jason. I just want to kind of just quickly speak as a citizen who does, yes, I ride mountain bikes, but I also hike. I love fishing. I love all those things, just being outdoors. It means so much to me to know that the city is trying to have something like this for both my family, for my friends, for neighbors, for everybody. Several people have said it, that it would be a wonderful resource. I am happy to hear that so many people that have voiced concerns, frankly, are willing to say, yes, we like the idea, let's just try to do this in the best possible way, and I completely respect their opinion. And I hope that we can find, common solutions that we can make this work for everybody. I do. I also would like to point out that I do have a earth science degree from Utah Valley University that specialized in geotechnical hazards, and 2 years of which were specifically spent on erosion control. And the measures that I've seen Dion and Jason include within the plan is within the best practices that any firm would use in any land development project they do anywhere. So I do understand the fears, especially for people that aren't learned and haven't been educated in erosion control. But from my experience, this is at that top level, so it's going to be vastly improved from what it is right now. And the only erosion that is going to be taking place is going to be if you have an insane storm, that erosion is going to happen no matter what. So that's an unfortunate situation, of course, but again, in my view, it would improve the current situation. I also would like to just point out that I've been riding my mountain bike on a weekly basis at Corner Canyon and Draper. I know many of the people that live in that area, and it has become such a resource for the city of Draper. They're seeing tremendous development both in the commercial and the residential aspects. And every single neighborhood there, every single one, is begging the city to build a trailhead in their own neighborhood so those citizens can access. The homes there are on the market for days, that's it, because they are so popular. Everybody wants to be right next to the trails. It is something that Draper has recognized the potential and the value, and they almost can't build trails fast enough to satisfy their citizens right now. So I truly hope that the council votes in favor of this today. I think that we can be just that awesome city as well. I thank everyone that has come up and give their opinions. I think it's important for you all to make a well-informed decision. Again, I hope, though, the decision is in favor. Thank you.
Drew Armstrong, 995 East Center Street. I'm gonna just speak to the Planning Commission's part in this. We heard this past Thursday, and we had a lot of discussion, and ultimately everybody voted in favor of it. The concerns that we heard were a couple of the concerns were erosion, noise, how close is it going to be? And one of the things I talked to Ben about for a moment that was brought up is that currently in that area, kids are up there doing rowdy things, and you want to walk away from the homes a little bit. Above the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, there is Forest Service land, and up in that area you can shoot guns, that's okay. But people are going into this area and actually shooting and things like that as well, trying to find a place that they can go shoot. And a couple of the homeowners had a couple of bullet holes. I don't think it's a super common thing, otherwise it'd be a problem, a real problem. One of the things that's really nice about putting this trail system in is that it creates a buffer that pushing people that are looking for that type of recreation a little bit further away from the homes. Obviously, you say, well, are the bikers in danger? Understand that bikers bike in close proximity to people that are shooting in the canyons all the time. It's not really an issue, but kids playing in a backyard, this is gonna push people a little bit further away. And if they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing, when you've got bikers coming by every 5 minutes, every 10, 15 minutes with a cell phone, they can call. And as far as self-policing, I'm sure nobody's going to go trying to fix that type of problem by themselves, but they certainly are just a telephone call away from calling somebody who can do something about it. I have a son who has never participated in mountain biking before, and this past year, we weren't involved with the trail building or planning or anything like that. But he got involved, and between the time that this was first presented to the Planning Commission and this last time, we went through all of the 6 different competitions. We got to go to those and see those, and knowing that eventually we were going to hear this, I paid a lot of specific attention. I ended up going and I got to fly my drone around. That was my extent of participation with this, and it was really fun. But it also kept me. It was the parents appreciated it because now I've got nice video for them to watch their kid when they can't see them. But it also made it so that I ended up staying far beyond when my own kid was on the course, and I stayed after and I watched what happens for the setup and the tear down and the preparation and everything. And I was there, the next morning in a lot of cases, and understand that. I would love for one of these events to be able to come. I'm glad that the city has split so we're not obligated to do this with any group. We're not beholden to somebody else because they invested some money, because now we can do it on our own terms as a city, and if there is a problem, we can address that, and we don't have to feel like, hey, you know what, you got us by the short hairs because you participated in this to begin with. But I mean, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. If it does, that's great. And I will tell you that, you know, in 3 of these areas, in these communities that have trails that abut homes and are close to homes, 2 of them really, where you have to drive right through the neighborhood to get to the parking and things. That Eagle Mountain is one of those. Draper, you're going right through neighborhoods. And I paid a lot of attention there, and there's no doubt that there are some families that were a little put off by the fact that in Draper, they actually close off a section of the road that's across from where the pit zone is, and that put some people out. But I will tell you that the city wants NICA to come back every year. They want those events to be held there every year. They are very involved with them, and you know, it's not something that's as big as Strawberry Days by any means, but there are a lot of people that come to the city, and it's interesting because I watched people that lived in those neighborhoods, and I have no idea because I don't know how many years in a row they've held the events there, but I know it's more than 2 or 3. They've been doing this for about 5. And families that are actually in these neighborhoods that abut come down, they want to see what's going on. And so they came down into there, and I'll tell you, a lot of them are like, I can't wait to sign my kid up for this. They're, you know, between Alta and Corner Canyon, I bet there are 400 kids in Draper that are participating in the programs that are available up there because of this. As a real estate agent, I can tell you that people, I mean, people are asking us now, Murdoch Canal is a reason to move. My house, I'm 1 house off of the Murdoch Canal Trail, and I would guess that I've probably gained, and every house is going to be different, but I've probably gained $25,000 in value just by having that trail built by me. And I love it. I appreciate that very much. I don't use it as much as I should, but I do appreciate that. As far as the trash goes, if a parent is walking away from, you know, through the neighborhood or down the street afterwards, they may see a water bottle or 2. They don't see it after all the volunteers, the hundreds of volunteers that are there, get done with it by that evening late at night. They might see it after 3,000 people have shown up and participated, but they don't see it after it's, you know, left and they move on, because they, you know, the organization as a whole wants to be invited back the next year, and so they do self-police pretty dang well. You might not get every family that's participating to have as much of a conscientious effort to keep things clean, but after the whole thing's done, it's not done at that point. And as far as somebody said that they were concerned, I think it was Lori said she was concerned about bathrooms and things like that. They bring in lines and lines of porta potties for this thing. If they ever do that kind of thing, all those things are taken care of. It's kind of expensive to have your kid participate. There are scholarships available and things like that, but there are some major expenses that are involved, and that's taken care of by whatever the race group would be. And it doesn't matter whether it's NICA or any other group that would want to come and hold a race or an event. You know, if somebody wants to come hold an event, whether it's the motocross, the enduro cross, or whatever, they have to meet the terms that the city provides to use the facility that the city has. And obviously, we're not going to have that many people come for a day if we only have 2 bathrooms. There's, you know, those things are things that we as a city can go ahead and address. I will tell you that I'm available if you have other questions for you know, how Planning Commission went. As a citizen, I'm in favor of this. I think it was fantastic to get involved and see the races actually occur between that time. I did go out of my way to go and ask some of the neighbors, how do you feel about this? What do you think? And anytime I could tell that somebody was from the community that was being held in. You know, obviously, if they're from the biking group within the community, they're going to rave about it. But I was looking specifically for, you know, whether it was people at the 7-Eleven that were noticing that there was an increase in the amount of traffic and people that were there. I asked those questions and tried to gather as much information as I could for our own good. And I think that every one of these cities that has had an event like this that I've been able to attend would definitely have them come back. So, thank you.
Thanks, Drew.
She had the one comment about worrying about who pays for porta potties. So just really quickly, any event organizer has to pay for that. As a matter of fact, Draper City, there is a price, or any resort city, wherever you go, there is a price that you have to pay per head to that city or to that resort. And then on top of whatever the city is charging, that's where the city really makes their money. That's why Draper wants us back. It's not because of the money we bring into the stores, although that helps. They make money off of us being there. So on top of them, us having to pay so much per racer, we also have to pay for everything else that goes in. So porta potties, all of that.
He said that there wasn't enough
Wait,
room.
can you address your comments just to the council?
Oh, right,
and
sorry.
Let's not have interaction back and
Yeah.
forth.
So for really anybody who has that same concern, porta potties are paid for by any event organizer. We might not come in here, good, really, really good chance we never will because of our size. But that's just us. Right? There's trail runs. You can do equestrian, some sort of equestrian event. There's all sorts of events that can be done by other people. Us, yeah, most likely not. But any of that funds, any of that cost was covered by whoever is organizing that event.
I'll say something really fast. So I don't know, I'm not a biker. I have a bike and I would like, Debbie Hong, 992 East, 100 North. I have a bike, but I had to have knee surgery and that kind of ruined it, but I'm gonna get there. But they're expensive, and I think, as I've noticed all of the bikers and their etiquette, their, I don't know if it's unwritten or written, but when they do their equipment is expensive, and so they take care of it. And they're not gonna jeopardize their equipment by leaving garbage and junk around that they could possibly hit when they're riding down these trails or whatever. And I think because they've invested so much in their sport, they're gonna take care of those trails and make them look nice. And anytime you have a lot of people anywhere, you're gonna get the riffraff. They're not gonna come. So that's just, I'm fully in support of the trails, so thanks.
Hi, my name's David Lisenby. I'm at 150 East, 300 South. Just want to briefly touch on 3 points and I'll be quick. I'm a ride leader. This was my first year helping the team. And what I got to witness was it transforms kids' lives, my own child included. They're not going to be able to fit into most of the other programs that we have, and this has been a phenomenal fit. But on top of that, the investment from the ride leaders is an hour or two every day to commute back and forth to the locations where we can practice. That's keeping the kids away from a lot of other things as well as parents. So next item I just wanted to talk about is as a parent citizen, we're commuting, traveling down to St. George or Lambert Park or Corner Canyon at least once or twice a month. Those are destinations for our family, and I think that what we found this year is there's a large community of families that do something similar. That if we had parks here, this would be the destination, hopping on Murdoch and going up. So just from a parent and citizen perspective, it's just a great fit. We're investing money into other communities that could stay here. And then the last one is, as a volunteer for a lot of these NICA events, it's an irrelevant topic, right? The event really isn't pertinent, in my opinion, to tonight's decision. However, as a volunteer, it was commented, there are literally hundreds of parents and adults that go out 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night and comb through every bit of the trail. And the areas are often left improved from where they were found. So just want to share some comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the council on on this or any other topic in the open session? How many people are standing in the hall? Five? We do have chairs up here if you'd like to come in and sit up. Have three up front here, couple back here, couple over on this side. Okay, anyone else?
Molly Andrew, 1107 Nathaniel Drive, and I know you've heard a lot and you're done, but I'm so excited to have the trail because I run up there a lot and it's kind of scary to get tucked behind the hills and you don't know whether you have cell phone service, and I'm excited to be closer to the homes and still have that privilege, and I applaud Jason for everything he's done. One thing I wanted to do tonight though was just tell Cindy Boy thank you. I don't know if anybody's ever if we're gonna have the chance to publicly do that, but I really appreciate everything that she does for us and for the city.
On that note, I think we'll close the open session.
Molly, and there will be on January 5th, from 4 to 5:30, there will be an open house for Cindy, and then her last special council meeting is Tuesday the 5th.
Okay, let's come back to our agenda. Progressed at 7:15. We close the open session. We're now on our non-controversial items called the consent agenda. Council minutes and also paid vouchers. Do you have any discussion? Okay, now I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Sid and a second by Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, there's no appointments this evening. No presentations. Okay, we have an action item with public discussion. This is a continued public hearing, item 9A, to receive comment on the fiscal year 2015-2016 budget amendments. The Pleasant Grove Redevelopment Agency budget is included in the final budget. The copy of the proposed budget amendment is available at the recorder's office. That's been there for a couple of weeks. And I'll turn it over to Denise.
See if we have better success.
David?
So I wasn't gonna go any of the items, we did discuss them in detail last meeting, and so just asking, for the council to approve the budget amendments. Like we talked last, week, 8 of the items were actually grants, reimbursements. Many of the items were budget that was adopted in fiscal 15 that we're asking to bring forward to 16 to be used to complete projects.
Are there any other questions for Denise?
And it was the, I just remember right now, it's the light. The canal lights.
The Murdoch Trail lights.
Yeah, Deegan talked a little bit about that was on the original, project list from last year. So
we're
those,
gonna carry that project
we can
over
bring
to
that
next.
forward, and if we choose not to do that, then we would come back and ask for those to be moved to another project, if that's the.
I don't know what they have in
Yeah.
I don't think we had I don't think I ever came back to the council with this discussion, discussion with you on pointing out that we would
We
be
didn't do
encouraging
it.
the use that is contrary to the rules of the trail, which right now it closes at dusk.
So, but we're still gonna keep it on the list?
Well, right now, all Denise is doing is moving it forward.
Okay. Alright.
Other questions?
I was hoping for a little more explanation of item number 24. It's a sewer impact fee carryover from Garden Drive, 900 South, 900 East.
Marty, do you mind?
Yeah, so part of the work for 900 South was done, as
as I understand it, I wasn't involved last year, so we are now doing the portion from about, well, starting at Locust, a little bit below Locust on 1000 South, and continuing that section up through now. And so part of 900 South and Garden Drive was done as well last year. So all of that budget, part of it was used. We're now asking for the remainder of that to be rolled over so we can finish the bottom end of 900 South sewer. And we're planning, and that was part of also the street coordination of the planning that we wanted to do, 900 South construction with the streets. That's because this sewer project is also planned under that street to be replaced.
Thanks. Any other questions? Anyone else? Okay, let's open it back up to the public then. It's a continued public hearing. If you have comments or questions on this item, please feel free to come up and state your name and address.
Glenn Venture, 120 North, 1400 East. If I'm understanding this correctly, the far right column is showing those as fund balance transfers. So virtually all of these that are not a grant are just a fund balance carryover from the prior year's budget. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're using budget authority that you had approved in a prior year.
Prior year budget.
And so basically you're using fund balance because you're bringing those forward.
Right, and I just wanted to make sure there were no items on this list that we're approving that are not fund balance carryovers or a grant, a new grant that has been received. Is that correct?
There are a couple items on here
Okay.
that are new. We talked a little bit about the copier purchase is one that we'll be using fund balance in FY16 out of the capital equipment fund, so that's one.
Line 12, is that right?
Yes. So that one is that we'd be using fund balance out of fiscal year 16. And then we had two items, 28 and 29, are using 11,000 from general fund balance out of fiscal 2016, and line 28 is based on increased revenue. So you're increasing the budget based on
But those would be
more
all
revenue.
new.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I got this schedule, I did not
Yeah.
fully understand. I just want
So-
to make sure I was clear.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back up here. Council, you have any further discussion on this item?
I have none.
Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion. What?
To be closed for public hearing, and item 10A is the actual.
Okay, so we're done with item 9A? Okay. Thank you. All right. So item 10A, directly related. This is the action item. It's a continued item to consider for adoption, the resolution 2015-041, adjusting and amending the revenues and expenditures of the 2015-2016 Pleasant Grove City budget. Am I reading this right?
I think it's missing words.
Yeah, it's missing a couple of words there, okay. 25-16 budget. The Pleasant Grove City Redevelopment Agency, RDA, budget is included in the final budget, providing for an effective date.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt resolution 2015-041, adjusting and amending the revenues and expenditures of the 2015/2016 budget. The Pleasant Grove City Redevelopment Agency budget is included in the final budget and providing for an effective date. We have the due dates written.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Diana, a second by Sid, by voice. Ben?
Yes.
Sid?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, And our next item is 10B, to consider approval of amending the Pleasant Grove City General Plan, amending Chapter 7 Parks and Recreation, regarding and adopting the Parks and Recreation Master Plan as Appendix G, and regarding and adopting the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan as Appendix H, and removing text regarding cultural programs, and amending Chapter 9 Public Services, adding text regarding cultural programs.
Mayor, on these four items, 10B, C, D, and E, we're just
Gonna have one presentation on all of them.
Okay.
So if you want to introduce item C,
D and E as well.
uh, Ken will be taking C, D, B, C, and D, and then D on Moorhead.
Item E, but we'll just wrap it all in one presentation.
Okay. Item 10B, to consider approval of amending the Pleasant Grove City General Plan, amending Chapter 7, did I read that already?
Yeah, you read B already.
C, to consider approval of a proposed amendment to the Pleasant Grove City Parks and Recreation Master Plan, amending text and goals regarding Wade Springs Park and the multi-use trail systems. Item D, to consider approval of a proposed amendment to the Pleasant Grove City Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan, adding Appendix B, multi-use trail system. And then also E,
Yes.
to consider approval of a site plan for the Pleasant Grove multi-use trail system on approximately 28.8 acres located at approximately 1450 North Murdoch Drive in the R120 single-family residential zone, as well as on approximately 100 additional acres located outside and east of Pleasant Grove city boundaries in the foothills. Yeah?
Okay, as mentioned, I will be presenting on the first three items, and then I'll turn some time over to Dion Giles, who will present the information on the site plan itself. These first three items are basically housekeeping items to pave the way for the approval of the site plan for the multi-use trail system. So to begin with, we're looking at two chapters in the general plan, Chapter 7 and 9. Chapter 7 is the chapter on Parks and Recreation. So before I get into the detail on that, this map you'll see a few times here tonight, but this is generally the area that we're talking about north of Grove Creek, and in the Wade Springs Park mostly is where the Phase 1 area will be, but extending quite a ways northwards and southwards on either end for the trail connections. So looking at Chapter 7, Parks and Recreation in the general plan, there's a few things that we felt we needed to amend or add in there to pave the way for the approval of this site plan. You do have copies of the chapters in your packet. I won't go through all of those page by page, but I will identify those pages where we have specific verbiage changes that we're adding into or amending the plan with. So on pages 84 and 85, we have updated verbiage in regards to the master plans, and such would be appendices to the general plan section, or Appendix G and Appendix H. So just adding that in there as a reference. On section 7.3, page 87, just correcting an address on the old rec center. Page 88, adding appendices G and H, and adding verbiage on the trail system. And then page 91, we're looking at removing section 7.6, cultural programs. We're actually going to pull this out of this chapter and move it to Chapter 9, which is public services, and which is where it more rightly belongs with the current makeup of our Parks and Recreation Department. So with that, we're also updating the verbiage in the goals and removing the cultural program goals from this chapter. So again, this is housekeeping. We're just kind of updating the verbiage to fit with what we're trying to do with the site plan, and we're just kind of cleaning up the chapter, taking out the cultural programs verbiage. So then going to Chapter 9, we're taking that verbiage and for the cultural programs and inserting it here as section 9.6. 9.2, we have added a little bit of updated verbiage in regards to city facilities. And I'll just mention that as
as we reviewed this in planning commission, we determined that there's probably other sections in this chapter, not probably, there are other sections in this chapter that need updated verbiage. It was not our intent to completely review and overhaul chapter 9. It was really, the whole purpose was to look at the multi-use trail system and pulling out a section out of chapter 7 and putting into chapter 9, so we're doing that, and then we realized, oh, we probably need to go back and do some more things in chapter 9. We're going to do that at another time. We've given notice to the fire department, the police department, the library, public works, for them to look at chapter 9 and review some of the verbiage there. So I guess what I'm saying is don't worry about any outdated information in chapter 9 at this time, other than what we're trying to do in regards to the multi-use trail system. So that's basically the amendments to general plan right now to kind of pave the way with what we're trying to do. I will move forward unless you have questions to the other master plans that also are looking for amendments here. Bicycle and pedestrian master plan was adopted a couple of years ago, and you heard mention of that here tonight, of the effort that we had with a committee that assisted with the preparation of that. It was anticipated at that time that this multi-use trail system would go in. There is not a lot of detail in regards to how that would play out, other than there is a concept plan for a bike park. Although at this time it's not necessarily a park, it's more just trails. And so we wanted to have that master plan reflect this current plan. And so what we're doing is recommending an appendix be added to the bicycle and pedestrian master plan, which would be just these 3 items. Shown here is a larger map of the area of the trails, and then a more focused map for phase 1 in the Wade Springs Park area, and then some detail on the trail preparation development. So that will just act as an appendix to the bicycle and pedestrian master plan. That's all we're asking to do with that one. The next one is the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, which was also adopted a couple of years ago. And there is a section in there for future parks, and it talks about the Wade Springs Park as a bicycle park. Well, we wanted that to be a little bit more reflective of what we're doing now, so a few pages being amended here, just showing an amendment date on the cover, looking at chapter 4, future parks, excuse me, with verbiage specifically identifying the multi-use trail system. Not a whole lot of change here, just kind of updating the verbiage. And then the goals also that reflect that particular chapter and the future parks in that area. Then you'll see at the bottom of the goals is those goals that are related to the cultural programs. Again, as we did with the general plan, we're going to move this information out of the Park and Recreation Master Plan and those goals that are associated. So fairly simple. All of it, again, is just basically housekeeping of our general and our master plans so that they fall in line with what is being proposed for the site plan. Any questions with what we're doing on those plans? All right, I will turn the time over to Dion Giles and we can talk a little more about the site plan for the multi-use trail system.
Mayor and council, first off, I'm gonna apologize to those that were here on the planning commission. They're gonna hear a repeat of, with a few changes. August 13th, we held the first planning commission for a bike park. Since then, we've made quite a few changes due to the recommendations of the neighbors and the community, the citizens. One of those recommendations was to not tie ourselves to any event, which we did. We removed the association with NICO, which they were acceptable to. We had not entered into any type of agreement with them. It was just talk at the time, and they've been very actually helpful to us in the beginning of this stage with the trail system. One of the recommendations that came from Planning Commission was to complete the site plan. This included hiring an engineer to look at all the issues that were brought up in the meeting, and which we did. We brought on JUB, and we've spent since basically August 14th until about a week ago, actually yesterday, updating that site plan and continue to update that. One of the other recommendations was to phase the trail. We were taking off a big chunk of the first slide that you saw. I need to get that up here. So this is phase one, this is the overall trail system that we proposed in the first Planning Commission meeting in August, and its boundaries were Grove Creek to Cedar Hills. This is the overall map, a little bit zoomed in here, and this is phase one. So we phased the trail, tackling this portion first, just due to the proximity to the trailheads, and with Pleasant Grove City owning, a big section there, those 28 acres of Wade Springs. Since phase one, since we did this, we held an open house November 19th. We had about 40 residents show up, and we addressed some of the concerns there. The site plan was there available to review, which was, I think, helpful to some of the residents. Some of the concerns in the first Planning Commission meeting were, one of the items was, how is the city going to put trails on property outside the city limits? We've investigated that. That requires a county permit called the Zone Compliance Permit, and that is in process currently. It is currently with their health department. There's the Public Works Department, Health, Fire Marshal, and Community Development review that application. And currently, Public Works has approved it, and it is with the Health Department currently. So we're kind of waiting on that, but that's a mechanism for us to build a trail outside of city limits. It has to go through that process. The other big landowner is Metro. We've been holding meetings with them quite regularly. The latest was last week. Their task list that they have for me is a couple pages long. Luckily, most of it's small items. They're in support of this. They support trails. It's a good use of their property. They like the people on their property, the experiences they've had in Draper. They've just had a good experience with lot less vandalism, those types of things. So they actually, they like these types of systems on their property. Another item on, tip this up maybe, is the drainage, which Mr. Rowe brought up. At the Planning Commission, we were, we need to address this. This is something that's been historically there for a while. And this is one of the changes since Planning Commission. We met with JUB yesterday. We will be getting with Dagan and Marty and including that on our site plan, how we plan to address that. So that we'll start looking at that next week. One of the other things was a fire break in the same area. We're gonna recommend that we do not go in and put a fire break, a traditional fire break, which is a road. We'd like to see vegetation cut down and access for a four-wheel drive vehicle to get through there, but we want to keep as much vegetation. If we make it a road, it'll become a road, and we don't want that in the neighbor's backyard. So the other issue at the Planning Commission meeting was the sensitive lands. We've identified two. I'm gonna try not to shake this pen out of the thing right here. I'm kind of nervous, but so right up in this area, there's two wetlands. They're not necessarily wetlands, but there are JUB's investigation. They do have some of those types of vegetation in there. Sometimes when our springs get plugged up with roots and that, the spring doesn't collect it all and there will be runoff. So we've stayed away from these areas. There are also a couple areas
for drainage. One of the bigger ones is right in this area. We'll be installing culverts there. That was one of the recommendations. The way Jason kind of hit it, the way these trails are designed and constructed, they're a sustainable trail. And so we don't want to do a lot of maintenance on them, and we don't want to encourage erosion. That's something with the older trail systems, and a problem we're actually having currently up in this area. Right now, we have a lot of illegal trails being built on Forest Service property, and they're planning on addressing that here in the near future. But these trails are designed to handle the water and to not create an issue with them. So one of the other things, a lot of that came out of that planning commission meeting was detailed drawings of what we plan to do. This is an example. This is not all of the detailed drawings in the site plan, but these are some examples of how we plan to mitigate the off-road vehicle use that's currently happening up there. And then it kind of gives you a little section of the trail itself. One's an equestrian, so an equestrian trail section is going to be wider, cut wider for the vegetation, and taller for obvious reasons. And then the bike, hike, and walk trail will be, 2 foot to 3 foot wide at a maximum. So some of the detailed drawings and concerns that the residents had were to restrict the access. We've identified these on the site plan and plan to put those restrictions in place. Access issues in the neighborhoods, we would like to start off with signage. That was brought up earlier. And if it becomes a problem, then we would restrict entrance into the park that way. Back up here a little bit. So 850 East, hit somebody's head right here. Oh, whoops, sorry. 850 East there, and then North Murdoch here. Currently we have gates there, vehicular gates, and there's access to pedestrians and bikes. We are getting some motorcycles through there. We're actually getting vehicles currently on 850 that are gaining access to this area. We'll use post rail fence, those types of things. One of the advantages to signage is it allows the residents in this area or over in this area here to gain access through there on their bikes or running. So I live down in this area, and I never go to the trailhead. When I run, I'll go through the neighborhood and then up in the foothills. So I think parking will not be that big of an issue, especially since we have no commitment to sponsor a race or be partners in a race. A couple other things were the noise and the curfew, especially at the trailheads. I've spoken with the Forest Service, with the forest ranger there, John Stansfield, and he's given us permission to sign these areas to our specific city codes, which deal with noise and curfew. And then also, we have permission to install security lights in the Grove Creek trailhead, which is something that the neighborhood up in that area has requested for quite a long time. So that is not part of the plan. That will be something that the city does. We'll do that. We'll do that.
Yeah, what does that look like?
What does what look like?
Security light.
So we have them. Trying to think where we have them. They're very similar to the lights on not State Street, but on 2nd South here. They're more like a parking lot light, like at City Hall or right outside this room right here. They're just about a 30-foot light, very directional down. We wouldn't put any more than probably 2 in there. It's not a very big parking lot. One of the other concerns was the shooting. This will be signed also. Once we create this, some of the things we've noticed on the Murdoch Trail, once in a while we'll have a 4-wheeler jump on there, especially now that the gates are open because they're plowing for obvious reasons. but it's a pretty quick phone call to PD. And usually, speaking from experience, even if you're in a vehicle and it's a marked vehicle and your warning lights are on, it's the people's trail and they let you know it. So they do a great job. I do want to address the litter. This was one thing as the Murdoch Trail came on board that we were real concerned with as staff. And currently, we will do a drive-by 2 or 3 times a week for garbage. And we may pick up a half a bag of garbage in the dumpster, or in the trash receptacles. You don't have a lot of garbage from these people. They're not like a park where they go have a picnic and leave their pizza boxes. You know, they have a water bottle and they take it home with them. So there's not a lot of garbage on the trail. So that's kind of my site plan presentation. As we move forward upon approval, funding mechanisms will still continue to research grants, donations, and then utilizing impact fees, which are for new construction of parks. As that comes forward, we do plan on utilizing a lot of volunteers, especially on the maintenance end of things, and some of the construction. So, and we've had, I need to do a presentation to you on just this last year on Eagle Projects and what the scouts did for us. We always have businesses, we have churches, you know, large groups coming in wanting to do projects, and this would just be a huge benefit for us to maintain that. Staff will obviously do the repairs that are specific to the trail, but we'll definitely use volunteers for the majority. One thing we need to do is come up with a name.
You ready for questions?
Sure.
So I see multicolored lines here.
Yes.
And my eyes aren't as good as everyone else's to notice what the legend says. Can you kind of briefly describe for us what we're looking at? Sure.
So I'm colorblind, so they're all just a different shade. So if you start down, do sections? Well, I'm just going to do the overall thing. So if you start down here off of Murdoch Trail, this is called a stacked trail system. It's something that IMBA recommends a lot, and there's reasons for that. So if you're coming along here with your family and you have a couple of younger children, they could jump on this yellow trail and ride that with you and do just fine. As you go up the hill, obviously the colors change and those trails get a little more harder experience-wise. They're steeper, a little more technical, that type of thing. So that's why you see those different colored sections there.
Okay.
Elevation.
This line here that goes this way,
Yes.
and then this way here, they're the same color. What do they represent?
So those are the bigger sections of the trail, which would be specific to equestrian. They will be designed for that. That's not saying that equestrians cannot use the other sections of the trail. It's just not going to be as inviting for them. It's going to be like more like they're up in the canyon or something, hunting or whatever, just kind of going to the trail. It's not going to be a trail that's going to be wide enough and tall enough. So that's what those are. Those are your main connectors.
And then these lines here are all the same color.
Mm-hmm.
Are they like at the top and part of the trail system as well?
Yeah, so that's kind of a loop system. So this is designed for a practice, this upper section through here, which gives those people wanting to deal with or ride a race type course more of that experience. As this moves forward in the future and goes further to Cedar Hills, that's where the real technical areas are. The hillsides up there are much steeper, and so this is pretty flat through here.
And then the long section that runs across the top, is this the old Bonneville Lake Shore Trail?
So currently, we do not have a designation. In our general plan, we identify this as a future Bonneville Shoreline Trail, and that's exactly what we're proposing.
So this system would tie into the system here,
Correct, and it will tie into the Murdoch.
okay? Down here?
Yes.
All right, so if this then is for the equestrian, and these are for varying levels of bike expertise, can you point out for us where the proximity issues are going to come into play here with the residents?
So the ones that have been addressed are just west of 850 in this area. And then this vacant lot right there, I believe. Those are the residents who voiced concern tonight.
Where's Mr. Riley, is it your name? Riley. Where's he live? In there? Sorry.
And you're looking at acquiring additional property as a buffer.
Correct.
Okay, what's the distance currently between the properties that are along this area here and say the equestrian portion or some of these pieces of the trail?
Without having a site plan and a ruler in front of me, I did measure this section right through here, and from the landscaped area is 25 feet.
Okay.
This, Mr. Ryrie, he mentioned that when we first designed this, we were actually rough, we were doing a concept and we were actually on his property. We've moved it to the north and to the east a little bit, but it is probably 10 feet, maybe a little more through that area.
Where are we talking?
From his property line, yes.
Here?
Yes.
This is 10 feet right in here?
Mm-hmm.
Not here, but
No,
down
well,
here.
10 feet, so his property line's like right there next to the
I see.
trail.
Okay.
So backyard then 10 feet from the.
I don't know if it's his backyard or his future side yard, but
This has not been developed yet, right? Your home is not represented, so that's why we don't see. Okay. Coming back up here, are all of these properties landscaped? Are they within their own property line? Or have they crossed over into city property?
yeah, there's a couple that have encroached onto city property. Like the one I mentioned in this area, from property line to the trail, we're about 50 feet.
Okay.
So,
And that encroachment, was that to kind of assist with mitigation of erosion?
correct, and drainage issues in the past.
Okay. So there's some kind of a permission or an agreement between the city and the resident to allow landscaping in that area? What's
That I'm aware of, no.
No?
There's not one.
So if we're looking at people that own property and that have left their property to develop or landscape property that currently belongs to the city, what is the true distance between the property line and the trail system?
50 feet.
50 feet.
It varies a little bit, but for the most part along that south border right there, it's 50 feet. Bob Bingham is a private landowner, and we would go into negotiations with him to put the trail section through here, and then a trail section through here. That would be a similar agreement to what we're working on with Metro. So those sections, if Bob does not agree to that, would be moved back or eliminated.
And as far as buffering goes, was there a discussion, I thought I heard tonight, some kind of tree or brush or something?
We've actually kind of started that a little bit with a few Eagle projects in this area. Obviously, we want to keep this a natural state, so we have a recommended list from the Forest Service on native plants that we're going to be planting in here as we do restoration. Currently, there's a lot of trails through this area, and there's a lot of, actually last year we had one cut in through the winter right up through here that was an illegal trail.
What about specifically between property owners that are in this area and then the 50 feet and then the trail system? Is there some kind of a tree buffer, a brush buffer being discussed?
We have mentioned it, yes. So we don't have anything like Mr. Rowe said on the site plan currently through this area for the drainage. And Dagan's recommendation is to come in, put a swell and a berm, and on top of the berm, we plant native plants, trees and bushes to create that buffer, which we can definitely do, so. But as far as fencing goes, we're not planning on installing any type of fencing other than, this post rail fence. I don't even, yeah, right here, that type of fencing, as far as an access control.
So as far as the immediate concern that was expressed by several about proximity, with the exception of, can you go back please? With the exception of the property, and forgive me if I'm not getting it exactly correct, where there's, you haven't developed yet and it was expressly on your property. With the exception of that piece there, it would appear that the distances here are quite far. And along here, the distances are at least 50 feet from property line.
Well, yes and no. I've measured this one. Whoops, right there. I haven't measured all these, but they're very similar. I mean, we're nowhere near 10 feet through this area.
I guess my question, and I think it's pretty obvious, and I'm being careful in expressing it, but I don't see a proximity problem. Where the city's property and where the trail is proposed is 50 feet away from property line, and residents have encroached on the city's property without an agreement to landscape it. I just don't see that as an issue, not for the city.
Yeah, so the way the trail's designed, we don't plan on to interfere with any that's existing, anything there. We're, like I say, 25 feet from the existing landscape, so.
Okay, trash, access, let's talk about access. If we've established this distance and we're talking about some kind of berm, where's the entrances and exits that are going to cross people's property to get to this?
Hopefully nowhere. So our access points will be the Wade Springs Trailhead on the Murdoch Trail, the Grove Creek Trailhead, neighborhood access through 850 and Murdoch, and then there's another access up here off of Cedar Hills Trailhead.
When we say neighborhood access, what does that mean?
So it's there now.
Uh-huh.
It's existing, it's being used, some of it illegally as far as off-road vehicles go, but we would want to restrict that to just biking and hiking, that type of thing.
So that's where you want to put boulders and fencing and things to prevent access?
Correct.
To anyone but bikers.
Bikers, hikers,
Right.
yeah.
I think my question is more about the parking.
Right.
One of the concerns raised, and I think it's a valid concern, is that if we have people in the area that are non-residents of that area, and we have many of them, they can inundate the parking when the private residence is in that area. And the question is, what can be done, or what has been planned to prevent that from happening?
So as we discussed it with the engineers, one of the ideas, we'd like to start off to see if there's gonna be an issue with signage. If it persists and it becomes a big issue, then we would restrict any type of access through this. We just go ahead and chain link the area off. Which is kind of sad, because then it ruins it for everybody else. I mean, I totally understand the homeowner's concern.
I'm talking about non-resident neighborhood
Right.
parking going on in that neighborhood.
Are you asking about where they're gonna park if they're gonna go walk on the trail?
I mean, we've talked about 50 feet of distance, we've talked about putting up barriers as far as vehicular traffic, other than bicycles, et cetera. But we haven't really talked about cars coming up into that area, parking, and then going through these entrances and, making their way up. Is it private property at that point, on each of these roads?
No, the roads are city property.
From the road where it ends to the trail?
No,
like
we
here,
actually tie in, we tie in there.
Here, and here.
So future North Murdoch will actually come up here and tie into 1800 North. That's on the transportation master plan. 850 right here is an access road to our Wade Springs.
So,
Currently.
so this road here could come clear up and abut the area, allowing people to walk. This appears to be a cul-de-sac, this appears to be a cul-de-sac. This portion here appears to be a cul-de-sac, which if there are homes and private property, you would think people wouldn't park and walk through the backyard. Is that what?
Correct. And one example right now, here on Ryrie's property, there's a pretty good trail off of that cul-de-sac up to the proposed Bonneville shoreline
But when he
trail.
builds his home and landscapes and fences, that trail goes away.
Hopefully, but HOA prohibits me from putting up a fence, so.
Pardon me?
The HOA will prohibit me from putting a fence up, so.
So it'd be really inconsiderate people that would park in your driveway or in front of your home and then walk through your backyard.
Let's hope not, yeah.
Okay, but those are the points that we're really talking about, are points where you have a natural cul-de-sac or some other area that it actually can access. Otherwise, you're looking at places that are completely walled off by homes.
Well, yeah, yes and no, because a lot of these residents, there's a few down here that are fenced. There's quite a few that are open. You get up into this area, I don't believe there's a lot of fences in their backyards. It's mostly open. So, I mean, yes and no. The access as far as getting a vehicle is obviously your roads.
You know, talk about reverse grading. What is that?
So reverse grading is the way that you design the trail so that there's water. A good example of it is your driveway. Yeah, Jason, would you mind hitting this one up? I get mixed up on a few of these terms, but
Do you need me to give name and everything again? Okay. So what a reverse grade is every one of these trails operate on a certain grade. In fact, for those who have seen the flags up there, we actually went through step by step with what's called an inclinometer. And what it does essentially is tell us what percentage of a grade we're going every six feet or so. So every one of those flags indicates us trying to keep within a certain margin of inclination, or a certain margin of altitude gain. That's to keep the trail sustainable. That's also to make them more fun. As Dion indicated, this is a stacking loop system, so the closer to the trailheads you are, the easier and the less climbing you have. The farther away from the trailheads you get, the more difficult it becomes. A reverse grade is when you take that incline and then you reverse it to give water a place to drain. So rather than the water running right down the trails, it now has a place to drain out and not contribute to the erosion. So you reverse the grade. In other words, if we're on a 5% grade, then we'll do a negative 5%, creates a little kind of a thing like that, where it allows that water to drain out. Also makes trails more fun.
this isn't, the reverse grades are not the whole trail system.
Just
They're
for
so
drainage.
often where it's needed for drainage. A good way that I was trying to explain was, thanks Jason, is if you look at a rainstorm on your driveway, what we're trying, that's the goal we have, is that effect of the water just running off smoothly. What we're trying to avoid with the way we're designing this is once that water hits your gutter and collects with everyone else's, now it's a force, right? And so we're trying to get away from that type of construction. That's the way these are designed.
So Marty, you dig in and, did I say Marty? Okay, sorry. Dion, you want to dig in a meeting with JUB next week to discuss the drainage issue, which would probably, as you said, need to be discussed regardless of the trail.
So we actually met with JUB,
Yesterday?
Yeah, it was yesterday. We notified them that we want this installed, whatever we decide to do on the site plan. We do have some other site plan amendments that need to be done, just due to Metro's recommendations. So that will be one that we address.
The water and the engineering's being addressed.
That's been addressed, yeah. Well, what you see before you has been addressed.
Okay.
What we need to address now is that right there behind 850 East,
Okay.
those homes.
So another item that was brought up was Appendix G and H being available to the public prior to either the public hearing, I guess that's already taken place. But, and then I've heard reference that G and H is actually a portion of what's already there being taken out and.
So the way I understand it, G and H are the pedestrian and bicycle plan and the Parks and Recreation master plan.
So
Which have been
how does that affect the issue that was raised tonight about having access to that information relative to this decision?
Ken, can you help me out on this one? Those plans have been available online since they were adopted. So I believe G and H were the master plans for the Parks and Recreation.
So G and H were available.
That's right.
Well, G and H is part of the general plan right now, isn't it?
Well, it was raised tonight as unavailable prior to the public hearing. I just want to make sure that we're not blowing smoke, that was the case. But they're available or they weren't.
The amendments available?
Well, the amendments have been made available recently, yes. I don't know exactly when they got put on.
But not prior to the public hearing.
Prior to the planning commission public hearing.
Right, I think that was the specific concern that was raised. It's not that the work wasn't done, it was that the information wasn't made available for review. Is that reasonable, or?
The agenda was posted as required, I know that.
And the information was posted with it.
Well, I can't tell you exactly what day they were put on the web, but they have been put there.
Would
I
that
think,
be prior
as
to
far
the
as I
meeting?
know, there's a difference between the legal requirement for noticing and what some might consider, going the extra mile to provide information. It's my understanding the agenda itself is a required thing for noticing, and posting all of the other things that we might be doing with that would be going the extra mile to
So I checked the agenda and when it was posted for the planning commission, just by going on our Pleasant Grove City website and going to the planning commission meeting agendas. At the bottom of the agenda for December the 10th, certificate of posting says that it was posted on December 7th in 3 public places. So the agenda itself was posted in 3 public places on December 7th. And then the public hearing notice specifically for this agenda item was actually published in the Daily Herald on November 29th. It was placed on the state public notice website and on the Pleasant Grove City website on November 30th, 2015.
So we have certification that the agenda itself was posted along with the notice.
Yes.
But
Now, I
not
can't-
necessarily appendix G.
Yeah, I can't certify what was
Okay.
posted in the packets for the planning commission or where any of the expanded information was available. The agenda itself was posted, giving the legal notice to anybody who was interested that there was a public hearing on that item.
All right.
I have some concerns on that issue, but I'll save them until you're done with your comments, man.
Well, I guess my comments, I went through, again, I like to take notes when you guys talk, because I think it's important to understand what the concerns are. But then I also like to come back and address the concerns, especially the ones that are actually pertinent to what's being discussed. Not the feelings, not the emotion, not the rah-rah support or the rah-rah negativity. It's really about the issues: parking, trash, access, private property. And I think as we've narrowed this down, it appears.
There's one that I would like to explain about that Lori brought up, and that's the event permitting process. Is that okay right now?
Please.
And I'm sad that Lori's not here because I would love for her to know this. So
She'll
will
be
somebody-
back, she'll be back in a little bit.
Okay, we'll just let her know that, and maybe Dawn, you can help me out, and also Ken. So in community development, there's a woman here that works, and her name is Carol. And when anyone wants an event of any kind, they come in and they register the event. Also included in that process is police and fire. So for example, if I'm gonna organize a race, I come in, have a conversation with Carol, Carol lets me know all of the things I need to take care of, and if there's so many people, then I have to make sure that I have porta potties and that I have, and I don't know if it is a price per head or if it's a price per event, but fire, police are then brought into the conversation so that they can keep it safe, and
Actually, most of the departments are brought in on that, so we always sign off on those events. And depending on the size of the event, as far as how many people they anticipate coming to the event, the larger events would go to city council for approval. Though the steps through that process are pretty intense. If it's off of city property and they plan on holding an event, they have to have property owners' permission. They have to have liability insurance, all those types of things taken care of, so.
And although Carol is a delightful person, there are many event planners that have left being very frustrated because it is so intensive.
You don't have insurance.
Correct.
All right, so just the bullet points then that stuck out. Runoff for the bike trails. I think runoff was attempted to be addressed by the individual landowners with landscaping. That was not part of this discussion, but that was part of other discussions relative to property that was developed outside of their own property limits in order to curtail runoff. Trash and debris remaining that affect the homeowners. I think that the trash and debris do not just affect the homeowners, they affect everybody in the city of Pleasant Grove. And so as part of any kind of an event or activity that's going on up there, again, whoever's organizing that event is accountable to go through and make sure that those things are taken care of.
It is part of the process.
Back down to the proximity, I think we've discussed the proximity issue. 50 feet is a pretty good distance, and if you're landscaping outside your property, then I think you've probably encroached yourself and created that problem. Not enough parking, I think that is a concern, particularly on the streets where they are residential streets and on cul-de-sacs where they may not have adequate access or parking, and it's not their place to park there. And so that's something that needs to be looked at. You're gonna address it with signage and to see if that addresses the issue. The water runoff, we talked about that again. I guess I'm not seeing anything in the bullet points of substantive matters that haven't been addressed, that need to be addressed. And I don't know, maybe the council sees differently.
I have a few that I'll raise.
Please.
And with some questions for you, Dion. And I'll preface my comments with a compliment to Jason. I mean, obviously tremendous amount of work. I've been getting a lot of calls and emails and texts. It's a testament to how much good public outreach has been done by a lot of people on this particular issue. And so it's been great to see that. Not all the comments have been universally positive, but most of them have been. And I think it's important and fair to note that from what I have heard, the clear majority of the public likes this if it's done properly. But that's an important caveat in my view. And there's a clear majority that has also told me in terms of whether or not they feel like this has been done properly, that they still have reservations, they still have concerns about the process. Just like Tina, attorneys here, when noticing issues were first raised, I too went to look at Royce's certificate of posting to see when the posting was done on the public hearing issues for the planning commission. And if it was posted December 7th, as Royce indicates, to the 3 public places, that's legally insufficient notice. The notice requirement that we're bound by as municipalities in section 10-9A-204, which says we've got to do 3 different things. We've got to notice in publications and papers, which we did within sufficient time. We have got to post it in public places within 10 days, with 10 days or more in advance of the public hearing. That wasn't. If we had 3 days, it's less than a third of the amount of time we should have taken to do that posting. And then we are supposed to give mailed notice to affected entities that have interest. And I have had some people call and say that they have had interest and they've expressed that interest to the city to be kept up to date and that their level of information has been notice of the open house as it approached, but beyond that, they haven't had the kind of notices that they would like to have. And to me, that's a non-trivial concern. So my broad question is, given the legal requirements that we're obligated by, is this premature? And you spoke a little bit about the health department's review of certain applications, some landowners that haven't yet signed their agreements, issues like that. I'm thinking back to the first planning commission hearing, which I attended. I don't normally attend planning commission, but I attended that one. And one of the notes I had was another section of code that talked about a comment from an individual in our city that was saying that there's obligations that we have to have all of the agreements in place before we have legal authority to approve site plans. I think that's section 27A something. Tina probably knows. I could probably find it in my notes, but there was a code section that talked about that legal authority. And so my thinking at this stage is great project, great benefits. A lot of people are very interested if it's done properly. I'm not convinced at this stage that we have done everything that we should have done, and I don't understand why, given the level of scrutiny this project has. I mean, there's been a lot of people that have been interested, and back in that 4 or 6 months ago, Planning Commission, my comment to the city was that we ought to make sure that we do every detail perfectly on this particular one so that we have everything in place. And so that concern to me is sufficiently significant that I'm not sure I can approve by virtue of the fact that I am an advocate of respecting the public, being transparent, and following the law. And in this case, I'm not sure we've given the legal sufficient notice that we're obligated to give.
So your concerns, Ben, then were the proper notice was not given and that legal authority is not there because the proper signatures, et cetera, were not in place on contracts.
So
Is that the case?
Those are the broad pictures I have. So again, not about the project. I mean,
Right.
I hear the concerns
process,
about
yeah.
trash and other issues, but
Thank
I'm
you.
concerned about the process primarily.
So Dion, for some of these approvals, the site plan has to be approved, so they know what they're signing on before we can move forward, is that correct?
Correct. So as far as the noticing goes, I'm not aware of that. I didn't handle that portion of it. It's way
And
beyond
maybe do
me.
some first-hand
So,
notice?
I'm looking at Roy's Davies.
We'll address notice here in a second. Let Dion address this portion.
so as far as the approval from the property owners, they want to see an approved site plan before they will actually sign off on any type of agreement. We've communicated, like I say, with Metro. They have this site plan that's currently in front of you. It will be updated with the drainage behind the residences and a few other minor things like where we want to put a garbage can. That's the minor things that Metro wants to see. But they won't take in an agreement until they have an adopted site plan. And so, same with the county. The county has an example of they have this, what we're looking at tonight, as far as the site plan to start the process. But until we have those approved site plan, there will not be any agreement. So it's kind of chicken or the egg, that type of thing. So.
Fine, we discussed that issue last week at length, and I appreciate that and the dilemma there. My instinct is that given the noticing issues and the fact that we do have pending applications that could get us closer to mutually satisfactory timing to do an approval where we are in better compliance with the law on authority to sign, to authorize a site plan, we would be well served to not delay 25 years, but who hasn't made that comment, 25 years to get the Murdoch Canal approved. I don't think we need more delays, but I do think we need to comply with law. And I'm of the opinion that we can do both simultaneously, give better information to the public, get more information into people's hands, so there are not those concerns that we've heard a number of tonight, and also have more of our agreements in place, more of our things pinned down, so that we're not passing a site plan knowing that we're immediately going to amend it, and not necessarily having the legal authority to pass the site plan to begin with.
So, based on what you just said then, we're in December. I imagine there's not gonna be a lot of site work done for the next month or two.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanna make sure I was right, I didn't wanna
Well,
speak out of
looking
turn.
at you, yeah.
I don't wanna speak out of turn.
Because I don't know who else, I mean, I could look at
So-
Theo.
Mayor,
There
it's
is-
our, it's our project as a city, so
Yeah,
there's
if I
not
can
gonna be any
address that.
site work done unless we say as a city.
What I'm wondering if plan-wise, was there any plan to
And
do
whether
site
or
work
not-
between now
No,
and-
we will not start any type of construction site work. Well, we may go in and clean up some things that need to be cleaned up, maybe put in some access controls where we're having the current problems right now with off-road vehicles. And look at the, like I say, the drainage issues, but there will be no construction on this until all the approvals are in place.
So that's pretty much independent of working on the site itself. Those are cleanup items.
Yes, if I can address, I think Ben's two concerns. I mean, the second one, I think Dion already addressed, was this idea that when we approached Metro, they said we want an approved site plan before we're gonna sign an agreement. So if our city code says something otherwise, I guess we're not aware. I think were you quoting part of our code?
Yeah, I was thinking actually of state law. Let me see if I can find my old notes
Yeah.
from the planning commission.
So if there's a state law that we've missed and we can reference that, that's fine, but that's just Metro telling us we're not gonna sign anything until we have a approved site plan. So we felt like we need to get the site plan approved from the city council, get in front of Metro. The first one, I think Tina covered, we have the legal notice for our public hearings and for notice. I think we met those. Now, is there an above and beyond that we didn't do? And maybe if that's what we're talking about, that's a little bit of a different issue. But my understanding is we've hit our public hearing notice and we hit our notice for our agenda. So I don't think we missed the legal notices on this, on the public hearing for the planning commission.
I read the state code differently there, but did you have a thought, Tina?
Well, I was just gonna explain that the noticing requirements are twofold. So the posting certificate that says he posted it in 3 public places on December 7th was just for the agenda. The other items that were posted clearly 10 days before this were the ones that he put on the website. Now, he doesn't say in his certification that he posted the public hearing portion, but that's standard practice.
It does say, it said on the public hearing,
But it was,
it's on the city website, state
and
website.
But it's not, it doesn't say that was posted in 3 public places.
Yeah, he lists the 3 public place posting as happening on December 7th when the hearing
Or
was.
just the agenda.
Right.
Just the agenda. But we notice separately for the agenda and separately for the public hearing, because the public hearing requires a longer notice time. So those things are certified that they were noticed within the proper legal time frame in November, right? 10 days before. It was put in the 3 places that it was required to be for the public hearing. The certification for posting the agenda on December 7th was only for the agenda. That's a separate requirement. So he's fulfilling 2 separate requirements, and he's done them both. He's done the 10 days for the public hearing in 3 places on the websites and in the newspaper. And he's done the required 24 hours notice for the agenda itself by posting it 3 days prior in 3 public places within the city. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I read that differently. I took that to be a different explanation of 2 different dates for the kinds of notice he provided. And the statute clearly indicates that you've got to do all 3 forms of notice 10 days in advance. I read his certification as indicating that he's doing the notice by publication in the papers and on websites 10 days in advance, based on the notification as posting in 3 different locations 3 days in advance.
We've never done that. I mean, we don't do that with our city council agenda. If we have public hearing, we publish the 10 days in advance on the public hearing, but we don't post our agendas to the public until Friday and sometimes even Monday, at least 24 hours. So if that's being read a different way, that's not the practice that we've done, at least since I've been here. I mean, the public hearing notices have always been separate, and they've met the time requirement. Are we saying the same thing?
Maybe. Let me find the actual statute again. It's section 10-98204, and I read that as requiring the 3 locations 10 days in advance.
Well, I'm looking at our local ordinance.
Well, I'm looking at the state law.
So what's our local?
So, rather than debate that particular item here, I think that's something that can be researched and looked at from a legal perspective. And we can certainly address whether it was noticed property, et cetera. On the other action items here, on the other concerns here, what other comments do we have?
I want to touch base a little bit on events, because I heard two different things, right? Can't and can, and if you could address that.
Would you like me to?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I'll try and be as clear as I can on events. When originally proposed before this council and before the original planning commission, we were going to be tied to one event a year with NICA, the National Interscholastic Cycling Association, through the Utah High School Cycling League, which is an affiliate of them. Since that time, in order to try and come to a compromise with some of the concerned residents, we stepped away from that. The Utah High School Cycling League was going to provide us just a little bit over $5,000 in funding in order to be able to have a yearly event that could come in. We stepped away from that. We still have the great support of the Utah High School Cycling League. They still love what we're doing, but no longer are we tied to an event. Having said that, it will be a city park, a city facility. Just like any other city facility, the city can be approached to by an event coordinator of any kind. I mean, our roads are even approached to be used for marathons and other things. And so, could there be an event there? Possibly. There is the trail system in place on which an event could be held, just like we have a baseball diamond on which a baseball game could be held. Judd Zimmerman, who has left, but he actually represents the Utah High School Cycling League. He's a full-time employee with them. And he indicated that right now, and he's the one who actually designs and approves where events will go in terms of, are they big enough to support the size of an event. And he indicated that as of right now, there is not anywhere near the amount of space we need to be able to host that from a logistics perspective. This means team tents and places for bikes and parking for an event. So until such time that we have those, the Utah High School Cycling League right now is not interested in holding an event at this point. Could other races want to come in here? Sure. There are trail running events. I'm hoping there's going to be Cub Scout and Boy Scout events that happen up there. There are smaller mountain bike events that could happen. But again, now it's a completely separate issue. It's not tied to this particular trail system. It's an issue that's based off of whether that event coordinator can come in, speak with the lady who's in charge of it, meet all of the insurance, bathroom, police enforcement, garbage cleanup requirements that the city requires, and should it be big enough, get the approval of the council. So that's a lot of words, but did that cover what you were looking for? Okay.
That's at our discretion. I mean,
Yes, that's totally.
I think that's what Jason's saying is, there might be 100 people that want to hold events, but if they can't meet our criteria, we as the city won't allow them to hold the event. Because there is a protection we want for the residents that could be impacted. So if we can mitigate the impacts and take care of that, then we can give the go-ahead. But there's been some concerns raised about events, and so we'll need to address that if we get a request for an event. Until that point, it probably doesn't matter. It's not requested.
Since I'm up here, can I make a really brief comment about parking, or would you prefer me not?
I'd appreciate hearing it. I'd like to hear the comment on parking.
Okay. The one thing I'd like to say about parking, I've done quite a bit of looking at parking, because
What
we've
about the
always
rest
known
of
that's
the
going to be the hot
council?
pocket.
I'm okay with him talking about parking. I have it, and I'll check it off.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I'll be super quick.
Oh, that's okay, they just have to approve.
Mountain bikers in general, even any trail user from within the city, it's going to be very silly for them to drive to a place to park. For the most part, everything is connected by the Murdoch Canal Trail. Cyclists, if we live here, chances are we're going to go up, we're going to bike up, and we're going to bike there. If you're coming from outside the area, the first thing any of us do when we go to trails outside the area is get online, look at the trails map, and see where the parking is located for those trails. And there's evidence for that through Draper, Corner Canyon, all of those kind of things. So people are going to come to the designated
Jason, this is a joke, right?
Yep.
We're the only nation in the world that gets in our air-conditioned car, drives down to the bike store to buy our bike.
Possibly, yeah. Okay, I'm done.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jason.
All right, are there other concerns that we need to discuss here as a
I've
council?
been inundated with too much information, I'm happy, so.
Okay. Anyone else?
Can I say one thing? Sorry, that's me over here.
Jumping in? Oh,
Just,
sorry.
just so you know,
What,
we do have-
what, Marty? Yes, say something.
We do have springs up on the site, Wade Springs.
Wade.
And we will be up there in the next couple of months clearing out some of the shrubs and trees that have started to grow in the spring area. Don't take that as part of this project moving forward and we're doing anything. I just know that I've got crews assigned to go up there in the next month or two to throughout the area. And it's not anything associated with this plan.
So maybe the question was already asked. I'm glad you said something. Does this project affect our springs?
We've worked around that with all of the trails so that it doesn't affect our
Okay,
springs.
so the water is,
Actually, we're gonna install a 6-foot chain link fence around the water protection area.
Yeah, we'll have to protect the area with the fence, but the trails do not go through the spring collection zones.
all right. Any other questions or concerns from council? All right, seeing none, I do think that what Ben raised is a showstopper if in fact this is the case. So I'm gonna turn to the attorney and say, what's the deal?
So if you look at 10-9A-204, notice of public hearings and public meetings, it says, if what Ben was referring to, is that each notice of a public hearing under this section shall be at least 10 calendar days before the public hearing, and shall be 1, published in a newspaper of general circulation in the area, which we've complied with, and number 2, published on the Utah Public Notice website, which we've complied to, mailed to each affected entity, and posted in at least 3 public locations within the municipality or on the municipality's official website, which we did, and that's in the certification of posting. So I don't see a problem with the notice that has been provided under 10-9A-204, the state statute.
And on point B specifically, have we mailed to the affected entities?
Yes, and we've got verification of mailing in our files.
So we've mailed to,
We've mailed to affected governmental agencies and property owners that were directly affected by the plan, and also property owners within 300 feet.
okay.
And then as far as notification on the city's website under meetings is not a requirement that you just listed. All right.
It's like I explained, it's separate. So the notification that we did for the meeting agenda itself was complied with, and then the notification for the public hearing item that was on that meeting agenda was a separate issue, and it was noticed appropriately pursuant to the state.
Okay. Okay. So seeing no other objection from our legal counsel, I don't hear anything here that's preventing us from moving forward on the action that's in front of us. Is that correct? So yes?
For staff, yes.
Well, and yeah, so I just wanna, so this is like a fluid document, or when the amendments come, you'll be bringing this back to the council for review. Does it need to go to planning commission first, and will there be a public hearing on the amendments?
The Tina question, I follow what she says to do. So,
Direct him to bring it back.
yeah, I would imagine in the next month or so, we'll be making these minor modifications addressing the drainage, Metro's specifications that they want us to add to the site plan. And prior to Metro's agreement, we would bring that back and move forward at that time with amending the site plan.
And would those amendments be public hearings, Tina?
For the site plan,
Just, yeah, if any amendments that come back will regard it.
the site
related to
plans
the site
aren't
plan.
normally public hearings. So the site plan amendments won't be, but if there's any other additional amendments to the general plan,
Oh, okay.
then that will be a public hearing.
Okay.
All right, I just want to make sure that the procedural issues that are legal have been addressed and as stated by our counsel.
I think that's correct on the notice issue, particularly with the indication it's not in the certification that mailing went out to affected entities. If that's the case, I'm comfortable with the notice. I'd love to visit with some of the property owners within the specified area, make sure that they did get that mailed notice. But that's comforting to me on that issue. The other section of code I was gonna read to you, Tina, from my earlier notes, let me pull this up again, about the authority to enter the agreement. To begin with, this, the inner site plan, my device will load. Section 27. This is
state code?
This is state code again. 1727A 102 is the section that talks about land use authority.
17 is normally reserved for counties, not cities.
Right, and that's the point. This is county land. Some of the land that we're talking about making the site plan to is county land. It's not within our municipal boundaries.
Correct, it is not, and that's what the zone compliance permit is.
Right.
With the county.
And that application's pending, but it's not finalized.
Pending our site plan approval.
They don't wanna sign off on something that hasn't been approved by the council.
That's an issue with both county and Metro Water, or just?
Correct.
Okay, that's news to me, thanks. So, I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with our position that we've gotta stick our neck out first and violate, in what I perceive, let me be circumspect in the way I phrase this, what I perceive as contravention of state law, because of the chicken egg problem.
Okay, so Ben, there's a way to resolve this, right? It's pretty simple. Legal counsel hired by the city to represent the city has to rule on this, and she has ruled. So if somebody wants to come back and take it up after the fact, they're welcome to. But right now, our legal counsel, which is not us, it's Tina, has said that we are in compliance.
Well, his question is on Title 17 with the county fee, and that again, that's not a municipal requirement. It's the state code governing county actions, and so I don't see where that's our concern right now. I mean, we're looking at the site plan, and then if we're applying to the county for approval, if they want to raise this issue of having all the agreements in place before they grant us that zoning approval, that's okay. But they're telling us we have to give them something to rule on, something to look at, which is an approved site plan. So they're the ones that are making the requirement for us to submit this to them. And the 17, it's not binding us in any fashion. It's binding the county when they consider the application. So that's an issue for them and their attorneys to be worried about. I don't think that's an issue for us.
So as far as the county goes, trails are, what's the right word I'm looking for? Acceptable. They don't need like a zone change, they don't need a public hearing, those types of things. It's all administered by administration. So it's an approved or an allowed use of the county, yes.
Well, like, an approved use. Unless there's a worst case scenario where we approve the site plan, it comes back, they don't sign off, we make an amendment, we do some adjusting. That's what the amendment process is for, is that correct? But they'll have something solid to approve the plan from what we're doing tonight, we can move forward, but it's a fluid document that we can adjust and amend and whatnot through the proper process.
The county has their rules to follow. It's not our job to tell them what they need to do. If they're telling us this is what you need to do, we're gonna do it. If they're not following their own rules, somebody can go with them and take it up with them. We've approached them, this is what they're telling us we need to do. That's what we're trying to comply with as a city.
So, I would like to make a motion, but I would like to know how, if I should do B, C, D, E all together, how am I doing this?
They need probably read them all.
They need to be separately, yeah.
Okay. So, are we all right if I make a motion here?
You can, anyone can make a motion, doesn't mean it's gonna get a second, but yes.
So I will start off then by making a motion that we approve, that we amend, sorry.
Approve amending.
That we approve amending the Pleasant Grove City General Plan, amending Chapter 7, Parks and Recreation regarding and adopting the Parks and Recreation Master Plan as Appendix G, and regarding and adopting the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan as Appendix H, and removing text regarding cultural programs and amending Chapter 9, Public Services, adding text regarding cultural programs.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion for approval by Diana. We have a second by Eric. This is not a resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed, and I'll state for the record that my opposition is not based on substance, but on procedure.
Okay. So we have 4 in favor and 1 opposed.
And then I'd like to make a motion that we approve the proposed amendment to the Pleasant Grove City Parks and Recreation Master Plan, amending text and goals regarding Wade Springs Park and the multi-use trail system.
Second.
We have a motion by Diana, second by
That's Cindy.
Cindy. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed, and I will state for the record that my opposition is based on not substance, but perceived concerns about procedure that are unresolved.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll make the next motion. I'd like to make a next motion that we consider approval of the proposed amendment to the Pleasant Grove City Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan, adding Appendix B, multi-use trails systems map.
And I'll second it.
We have a second by Sid. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed, and I'll state for the record that I don't have an issue at all with the substance of the proposal. I think it could be a fantastic thing for our city. There are additional procedural things I would like to see done.
Okay, I'll make the last approval of a site plan for the Pleasant Grove multi-use trail systems on approximately 28.8 acres located approximately 1450 North Murdoch Drive in the R120 single-family residential zone, as well as on approximately 100 additional acres located outside and east of the Pleasant Grove city boundaries in the foothill areas.
I'll second. Well, who wants it? Cindy?
You got it. Motion by Sid, second by Eric, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed, and you know what I would say.
Yes.
We've heard it.
Procedure. That air conditioning feels real good.
No
right
wonder
now.
that Murdoch Canal took 25 years. Had so many journeys.
Okay, I just want to say I'm really pleased with the council. This is, it's been a good discussion. We've had input from all of those that have come out and discussed it. It's been rather peaceful. I think this has been good. It's been, the horse is dead. It's been beat to death. Now, let's hope that we can finish up on these outstanding items and get through what we need to so that the thing can go all the way.
Hey, can I ask a
Good.
quick question, Jason?
No.
From start to finish, how long did this take?
Just over 18 months. I think I'm invested about 800 hours.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it. Appreciate all of it. You're welcome to stay. You don't have to. If you're not going to stay, make it quick. All right, item 11 for discussion, nothing. Item 12, discussion of the January 5th city council meeting. I see a resolution on, is it on here? I do not have a posted resolution. And in order of procedure, you can't do this. I'm so sorry.
They don't have any
All right, discussion of our January 5th meeting.
Yeah, so there's no agenda.
Okay, we have nothing to discuss on that one, other than that we will have a thank you farewell for
Bon
Cindy.
voyage.
Bon voyage.
Best wishes for other plans. All right, let's go through our business. Anything, Libby? Okay, coming over here, Ken? David? I'm gonna get the names. Dion?
Heavens no.
Okay, Marty?
You did a nice job, Dion.
Dave? Mike? Back there? Nope. Okay. Sherry?
We finally got the elevator.
Yes! Awesome!
Wow.
That
Hey,
is
it only
great.
took a year.
Congratulations.
Trey, what does that mean now?
It means we can finally start moving on
We're
it.
gonna hire an architect and start designing it out.
Wow.
Bravo.
Client library, I love it.
Me too.
Anything else? Okay, Denise? Scott? Tina? Dagan?
Plats,
You
that's all.
signed the plats. If anybody hasn't, please, okay? All right, let's come up here. Kathy? Eric?
Okay, what did I tell you? I told Scott I wasn't gonna say
Diana.
anything, but I attended on your behalf. I attended, with Mayor Curtis put on I don't know what he did, a dinner, and then they hosted the Nutcracker, the Utah Regional Ballet, which I really didn't, always thought it was Ballet West, right? This is the very first ballet I've ever gone to, right? And I was impressed with the talent and the performance, and so you have that on camera and on record, that I enjoyed the ballet. So thank you.
Thanks for taking one.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm not gonna say anything, Cindy, sorry, I wrote it all down. So.
Thank you, and I haven't read it till I can read it and cry at home.
All right, Diana? Nothing? Ben?
Looking forward to the party. I wrote some things down for some too.
Okay. Sid?
Wow. Start a couple new traditions here in Pleasant Grove. Eric and his wife and my husband and kids went to best Christmas pageant ever, the first Christmas play by Center or Youth Theater. Well, no, not even youth theater, youth players. Okay, awesome. That needs to become a tradition. And then the choir at the high school. First time we don't have anyone in choir. Went to that. It was like Broadway. So we have amazing arts in our community. We just
Really
need to
do.
make sure we highlight those and go to them. So that was some fun traditions that started. So, and then if we don't see everyone, just Merry Christmas and have a safe and happy Christmas and New Year. So, because we don't have any more meetings, right?
Not unless there's an emergency.
Okay.
Okay.
And Cindy, I'm gonna talk to
Cindy?
you on January 5th. So.
Okay, nothing.
Really?
Yeah, thank you for all the gifts and the Christmas, and everybody have a Merry Christmas.
Well, I just have one thing I want to throw in. Tomorrow we open up our 5th theater. It's in Evanston. It'll be a first run, and we'll be playing Star Wars.
Oh my
I love those trips. I'll be leaving tonight. Sid,
Yes.
from now until Saturday. You're up. I'm sure you don't. Sign the plaques. I don't think there's anything else.
One more thing I forgot. Thank you, street, snow removal guys. Amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, we have our gathering next Tuesday at the Darringtons. No karaoke and no what?
Sid volunteered to be in charge of the game.
That's
Oh,
okay.
that's right.
So I don't know what that means.
All right.
It will not be recorded.
Oh, I don't know, I have last year's recording of you
I
and
think
Carol.
last year's was recorded.
Yes.
And that needs to be eliminated.
No, I'm taking all of my secrets are going with me.
Yeah. 7 years. 7 years.
All my secrets are going with me.
We do have an executive session.
Okay. We need a motion to go into executive session
Mayor, I'll
to
make-
discuss pending or reasonable imminent litigation.
I make the motion that we enter executive session discussion of reasonable eminent litigation.
We got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah. Been doing that.
Thank you, everyone, for coming and supporting.
Yes, thank you.